Welcome to Gauge by Test.com, a robust testing platform for companies of all sizes. This video will help you getting started on creating and editing a test with question banks and Gauge. First, let's take a look at how to create a question bank. You can find question banks under Manage, then Tests. Next, you'll want to click on Add New Question Bank, and you'll want to give your question bank a name. Then you're going to want to click Add New Question Bank. If you have created a basic test or watched the video on how to create a basic test, the screen should look familiar. We're going to jump in right away and add a few questions. Start by clicking on this Question tab. Then Add New Single Question. We're going to add a multiple choice question. We are going to bypass all of our options for now and go right down to our editor and add our first question. Now let's scroll down and add some of our answers. Be sure to include a value for each answer. Remember, adding a value of 0 means it's an incorrect answer, and then anything greater than 0 is the point value of a correct answer. Let's scroll down and click Create New Question. We're going to add another question before we create our test. I'm going to pick multiple choice again. Then I'll add our question and add some of our answers. Then we'll click Create New Question. Now that we have a question being created, let's create a test. We'll come back up to the Test tab. Click Add New Test. We'll give our test a name. Next, we're going to make sure we have Test with Question Banks checked. Then we'll click Add New Test. If you have created a basic test or seen the video on how to create a basic test, you'll notice instead of a Question tab, we have a Question Banks tab. We'll click on that. Before we add our first question, notice there is a checkbox that lets you control your various options at the question bank level rather than at the test level. This gives you a greater control over how your users will experience taking the test. We'll come back to this in a minute. For now, we're going to click on Add New Question Bank to include a couple in our test. Here, you'll see a list of question banks that are available to you, including the one we just created. Since we are creating a final lab safety exam, let's select both the Lab Safety Basics and the Advanced Lab Safety Exam, then click Pick Sections. As you can see, our two question banks have been added. Let's take a look at some of our settings. Go back up to Options. Most of the options for the test with question banks are the same as a basic test. Here, you have the option to control the time limits, the question limits, question randomization, the number of questions a test taker sees per page, and more. All of these options impact the entire test because we are currently editing options at the test level. But remember, we have the option to control settings at the question banks level. To do that, we'll scroll back up to the Question Banks tab. To set options for a question bank, click on the corresponding edit icon to the far right of the row. Next, you'll have to scroll down just a little bit and find the section that says Override Section Advanced Settings and click the checkbox that says Override. Now, changing any of the following settings will only impact this question bank for this test only. In other words, each instant of a question bank across the test can have its own settings. Let us scroll down and click Save Changes and move on. Lastly, we're going to take a quick look at our options for scoring results. You can find them under Options, then Scoring and Results. One of the features of question banks is the ability to display results that are summarized by the section. By default, results are not shown by section. But if we click on the drop-down, we'll see we have several options on how a test taker can view results that are organized by section, including options that display graphs with percentages. Let's choose an option to show a bar graph of percentage scored and a pass indicator. And as always, let's save our changes. And that covers the basics of creating and editing a test with question banks and Gauge. Check out our other videos on how to create more advanced tests.